Hey fam, welcome to my channel. My name's Mark and this is another L1X video, and I just keep doing them, and this is a continuation of the L1X white paper. So let's get into the white paper. Chapter 14, L1X reward mechanism. Blockchain-based token economy design requires a rigorous engineering approach to be able to sustain and lead to a virtuous cycle of growth driven by network effects. Token engineering can be defined as the theory, practice, and tools to analyze, design, and verify tokenized ecosystems. Token engineering encompasses theoretical concepts being applied to create and deploy a total economy. Defining the main goals of the token system is a critical step in token engineering, leading to rigorous analysis, design, and verification of ecosystems and desired behavior. L1X coin measures its stability and facilitation of transactions by engaging its resource accessibility model to tend toward the right balance between the supply and demand intersection to be determined by time and resources on the network. The goal to reduce friction to an optimal level based on the correlation takes the following sequence. A decrease in friction transaction cost leads to an increase in token transactions, leads to increase in token velocity, leads to increase in supply of tokens that leads to the decrease in the dollar value of the token. The factor of time and resources on the network are directly correlated to demand D and supply S on the network. Here, the friction of the token with the number of groups and the consensus mechanism of relatable transactions are correlated. 14.1. Friction on the network. Friction on the network determines the excess the transaction initiator is willing to bear to conduct a transaction on the network. The goal of the friction is to be at its optimal. Three situations emerge out of friction as follows. When f is less than 0, where the number of transactions must be recorded on the network in a time interval. The number of transactions should not have latency time and cost associated. Where f, validation compensation, will be less than 0, which is not economically feasible, as there is a positive correlation in between validation compensation and the time required to record a transaction. If the network uses its resources to conduct transactions, the market cap of the total volume will go down, which will drain resources on the network. This will not provide a scalable mechanism of conducting transactions. When f is equal to 0. This will lead to no growth in the value of the token, as the friction cost will increase on a constant basis if the supply and demand increase on a constant basis. If there is an imbalance between the supply shift, the impact will be on the friction, and hence this model is not suitable for an imperfect marketplace for transactions. When f is greater than 0, which is inflation, mint and burn, where the friction for f is greater than 0, proof of stake and proof of work based consensus mechanism will create ways for accumulation problem. Velocity will be lower. This has direct correlation with the transaction cost increasing. When the friction is set by the network based on proof of participation, it will adjust the friction curve based on the supply and demand of the transactions on the network. The goal is to keep the velocity of the token at an optimal network acceptance level. The friction is paid by the initiator, and the allocation of the friction is put back into the pool, which is distributed to adjust the supply curve into the system. The more transactions that are processed on the network by an initiator, the more resources the initiator will pass on the network to maintain the pool. 14.2. Consensus mechanism and incentive scheme. The proof of participation consensus mechanism proposed is based on a resource allocation module where the participants in transaction or value transfer constitute the nodes and the network. The user is the initiator, and the nodes will be used as the verifier on the network. Resource costing model. The cost of the resource allocated must be based on the equivalent. 14.3. Resource costing model. The cost of the resource allocated must be based on the equilibrium of initiation and validation. For the total number of transactions, there is an equal amount of demand based on the network. Hence, supply and demand will be 1-to-1 with an error margin of 1-to-1, which will be corrected by the network. 14.4. Token distribution and pricing strategy. The distribution of the Layer 1 tokens is based on building network effects and bootstrapping the network from the initiation phase, including participants such as Layer 2 application developers, network growth facilitators, and users. A pricing strategy that is optimized for growth will be adopted. There are various correlations with the factors that comprehend the token distribution model. 14.5. Consensus mechanism and token pricing with respect to token inflation. Layer 1X and its innovative proof of participation based consensus mechanism provides an acceptance state of validation. When the participants are validators, they are part of the same pool of the network. The resource utilized to achieve a consensus state can be directed toward an optimal resource utilized an incentive mechanism. When the incentive mechanism is optimal, the velocity of the token for reward is optimal. If there is an imbalance between the incentive and token velocity, the price of the token will incur more inflation. L1X has inflationary measures taken into account. For example, floor tokens, the native currency of the floor network, distribute the inflation to stakeholders, and this results in a decrease in the volume of the token. Evidently, the control of inflation must be done at the consensus mechanism stage. 14.6. Token participant distribution and pricing. The participant token distribution strategy incorporated at L1X provides for growth in the network and incentivizes participants to get on board with the mission. At L1X, the resource model is based on the usage of the computing power that an account requests and provides on the network where participants and the validators are mutually exclusive but form a part of the same pool. In such instances, the participants that provide resource utilization and availability are the developers and the users on the network. 14.7. Ongoing distribution rules, governance, and token pricing. The ongoing distribution falls under two major components, and its relation to token pricing is also considered. Firstly, the technical module considers the resource available in the network and the cost to facilitate state changes. The value of the resource is based on optimally setting the value of the token to avoid considerable friction that will bottleneck the network. Secondly, network and service level issuance consider different components such as ongoing, mainly ancillary allocation of resources such as threading, spills, bundles, and others. 14.8. Layer 2 tokenomics versus Layer 1 tokenomics. The distribution of tokens to developers enables the distribution and utilization of resources on the network, which enables ongoing coin distribution to increase coin decentralization as the users acting as the validators get rewarded. To overcome the problem of increasing the cost of resources on the network, resulting in coin inflation, the ongoing coin distribution model needs to correlate with the growth of the network. 14.9. L1X coins. Layer 1X coins are required in the following cases. Resources. To conduct a transaction on the network or to be able to execute scripts on the network. Resources on the network are the primary driver and L1X coins are required. Exchange. L1X coins provide a medium of exchange among its participants on the network, which can be used to transact on the network. Liquidity for secondary coins. To gain liquidity on the platform, L1X coins will provide access to decentralized pools that will allow for coin exchange. They will also be able to act as collateral for secondary tokens. Rules and governance participation. For the ongoing rules and governance changes, it is important for the network to be able to sustain changes and updates. To validate updates, L1X coins will allow users to participate in governance and rule updates.